Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got a really cool video for you. This is following on a beginner's guide series that I'm doing. Check out the link in the description. And this is going to be all about 40 of the champions which are considered to be really good, especially for beginners that don't
succumb
really
to the
require
ISO
much
spell,
effort to produce
one way or
damage
another.
output from them.
The contest of champions thrived for
So
decades
we're going to give
under
you
Tanalia
40 amazing
Divan,
champions,
the collector.
a quick reasoning.
Divan filled his crystal vaults with scores of mind-controlled champions to use.
So, bit of a disclaimer, this is really for new players and especially what champions to focus on, the best champions to focus on, why to level them up, and other kinds of information like that. But also, this is not going to include every single champion. Let me stress this again. The fact is, it's all about champions that are easy to play with, get on with, and use, that you can take on content, whether or not you're doing Act 4 or Act 5, or then thinking about later on progression from there. The fact is, these champions will be quite good. Right, we're going to start in alphabetical order, starting with Aegon, a great champion, amazing combo building, amazing ability. The more combos you get, the more damage you're going to do, and also it's going to be more beneficial effects. Champions like this at a higher rating and higher level are taken into so many different bits of content. Obviously for this one I would recommend as a 3-star that you'll be looking to things like going up against Act 4, maybe going against Maestro with this guy, and also maybe a lot of other content, especially when you're looking at the early parts of Act 5. Not to mention at a higher star it can be really effective in things like Labyrinth of Legends. But do take this champion with so much kind of strength behind it, get it ranked up. It's a great champion. Angela, really easy champion to get on with, just really simple. You've got Furies from this amazing champion. I like to build past an L1 and therefore then just kind of keep it there, keep on spamming L1s, because I think the positive effects are better just after that L1 power bar. It is kind of kept there for your usage, bit of regen, you know, great damage output and great starting champion, easy peasy to get on with. Next up, Archangel is pretty easy to get on with as well. The easiest thing I can really say with this is he builds bleeds, he builds poison, and the best thing to do is hit into a parry, do a heavy attack, which is you click down on the right hand side on the enemy champion, and then you're able to put in a bleed effect onto the enemy. Do watch out there to go into a block stance, because it will mean that if a champion is not poison immune and they do trigger a poison, then also when you're looking to put in special attacks and as well putting in your heavy attack from time to time, it will mean that you're going to get a neurotoxin, which is going to kind of put in a lot of damage, a huge amount of damage. So remember that. Heavy attacks seem to be the way to go, and just do your parries as normal. Parries, heavy attack, parries, heavy attacks, L1s, and allow the enemy to hit at you sometimes in the block, and you'll do some amazing amounts of damage, and also suppresses that health, which is very important. Blade up next, fantastic champion, great regeneration, not to mention the fact we've got Danger Sense, which is helpful against a lot of enemy champions. Villain-based Danger Sense, you've got stuff with Mystic-based champions, a great champion to use. Bleeds as well. You've got so many things. A power gain if the enemy's bleeding, a great champion, and great for a beginner-based champion to learn structure and kind of get behind your rank up materials. Cap Infinity War now, or Beardo, depending on what you want to call him. The fact is there's so many things going for him. Do a heavy attack, you get a Fury, that's passive Fury. If you like to put in an L2, but also make sure before then you're being hit a little bit, so you build up those kinetic charges, which will be the blue things in the top left hand corner. Do a heavy attack, do an SP2 after, you're able to put in a massive amount of damage. Also look to awaken the champion at a later date. It's not a given, the champion's still good, but the awaken ability is quite fun, especially considering against Dr. Doom, and having the petrified debuff has been very effective against the aura of Hazaroth. So there are some decent things with his leadership signature ability as well. Now Cap World War II, it's an easy champion to use and it's easy to understand. Just do an L1 to get stuns, and also when you want to do an L3, that can be quite helpful as well. Safeguard is again very helpful when in perfect block, and obviously creating a huge amount of block proficiency, but also look to put in that devastating L2 with a huge amount of bleed damage. Can be very effective for your usage and also helping you out. Colossus, and recently buffed, a very effective champion for usage, a huge amount of damage output, and also limits down a lot of damage incoming. Bleed immunity, as well as the fact that you've got some sort of kind of cold snap immunity there, And also we've got immunity to Incinerate as well. So there's a lot of things going for this character, and well worth a shout for ranking up. And as well, look to create those armor buffs, because armor buffs are going to mean some good damage output. Put in a nice little synergy with the Mega Red and Emma Frost, and you'll be able to have a fantastic time with this champion. Next up, and CORVUS GLAIVE, a fantastic champion that is used for huge amounts of critical damage and damage output over several battles. Look to do missions, and missions can be found in the abilities section, and this will give you persistent charges, and persistent charges basically mean that the more charges you get from battle to battle, the more damage you're going to do down the line. An incredibly devastating champion against enemies, and a real fun champion, especially with Glaive's immunity. Next up is Dr. Doom. At the point of recording this video, I do not have Dr. Doom. Hopefully I have this champion at a later date, but let me just tell you that this champion is great, nullifying, amazing damage output, shocks, power gain, power steal, you know, the list goes on. So many great options and great utility. So yes, definite champion to focus on. Next up is Dr. Voodoo, and a fantastic champion for damage output, and also the fact he gets regen. At the start of the battle he gets a big chunk of regen. Also look to the Spirit Venom, and that can be seen in the top right hand corner with lowers. So when you see a lower, which is kind of an orangey yellow icon top right hand corner of the enemy, you can then transfer that with an L1 and start putting in some damage output. Understand with your Awakened ability the odds and the evens, because it can mean for some more damage and also greater damage output over time. Look out as well if you want a power steal or power burn. Push to the L2 and then you'll be able to do that, but a great champion overall. Next up, an incredibly huge damage output, and that is Domino. Look to push to like L2, smash them in. Look out for when Unlucky appears on the enemy, because that can be really helpful for you. As well, going up against this champion is kind of annoying, but especially when you get luck. And when luck pings up top left hand corner in green, it can mean that it can save your butt from being completely damaged. Also look out for very nice critical bleeds, also huge amounts of crit damage from the SP2. If you feel you want to put an SP3 in, you have at it. There's going to be huge amounts of damage output available. So yeah, great champion. Now what of Ghost? A fantastic champion as well. You can do so many things with this champion, especially when it comes to debuff effects. Got a debuff effect, swipe back, you go into a phasing state, and in a phasing state, anything that was a debuff effect is transferred to a passive fury. Do heavy attacks in order to get more true fury buffs. So you got that fury passive and the fury buff. Then it's a case of looking into having a synergy working in with Wasp and Ant-Man for damage outputting a huge amount, especially considering that it's going to be unblockable. That is something that's going to be a really cool option for you. Ghost, great champion, huge amounts of damage output. Guillotine 2099, fantastic champion as well. All of these are fantastic. There's great amount of self-repair, so you've got your robotics with a healing. You've also got like armor as well. Like, I think the main thing is all about combos, and the amount of combos that you do is applicable to damage output, and as well the immunities does very much help for this character. Also check out pre-fight ability, because that's something that's going to be really helpful whether or not you want to regen or you want to do more damage. You've got that option available for you. Gwenpool is an amazing champion, doesn't need to be awakened to be good. You've got bleeds, you've got incinerates, you've got innovate, so you're able to power lock off an SP2. Loads of different things of an option, and you can like refresh some of those debuff effects with the heavy attacks. Loads of different options there, loads of different bits of fun with this amazing damage dealing champion. Now on to one of my favorites, and that is Hawkeye. Hawkeye, for a lot of players, they kind of go like, oh, they know why they fell in love with him, and it is really about the L1. Do a special one, you're able to power control, and there's some good bleeds from time to time with the signature ability, but it's all about that L1 power control. That's just so tasty, and why players actually secretly love this champion. Next up, you've got Hulk Rage. He's only really available as a 4-star and as a 2-star, but still, it's a great champion for stunning, poison immunity, fury. You know, you've got a huge whole host of different things that make this guy so good, and can be really helpful when you want to damage out a huge amount. And obviously, if you want to keep him low, you know, about that 25%, you're going to get some huge amount of damage. Next up is Hulk Ragnarok, another great champion, poison immunity, similar to the Hulk that we just saw a moment ago, but there's so many other bits of kit to this. You've got heal blocks, you've got stuns, you've got innovate. Champion is quite good against debuff effects, and in particular, and the only one that I think I've mentioned is the degen, so people use against the Starburst node with this champion. Also, when it comes to variant 1, there's times where this champion is very much a go-to and fun champion to use. Next up is Human Torch, great incinerate damage, cold snap and frostbite immune. I don't have him, really would like to get him, but you know, that's how the crystals fall sometimes. You just got to give, you got to work with what you've given, and obviously that's the reason we've done this list, and also the other one that will be released and I'll talk about at the end of the video. But yeah, great champion. Next up in Hyperion, one of the best cosmic champions out there. You've got Furies that are very easy to do with doing a heavy attack, so maybe do a parry, do a heavy attack. If you're good at chaining heavy attack into heavy attack, then this could be a really good option for you. Do an SP1 and you get an Incinerate debuff effect on the enemy. Not to mention the fact that the amazing amount of power gain does mean that you'll be building up to L3s. Say if you've got some Furies on, say if you're doing L2s, L1s, look to put a huge amount of damage output. It's just a great champion. Next up, we've got ICEMAN, triple immunity, does cold snap, frostbite, huge amounts of debuff damage over time. It's just like so good as well. You've got the organic ice, which is going to be great for you to kind of just withstand a lot of stuff. If you've made a mistake and you've pushed an enemy to an SP3, then if you've got the organic ice up, then it does mean that that's going to be keeping you alive in the game. Pair him together with the Korg synergy, get a little passive Fury. Also put in the Heimdall synergy, get yourself another Fury. You know, it could be a good option to kind of do so many different things with this champion. Okay, here we go with Luke Cage, a really decent character, especially looking at Indestructible, which obviously is going to keep you alive in the game for a little while if you've got the Awakened ability. Look out, this champion does do fatigue, he's got bleed immunity, he does stuns from specials. There's so many things going for this guy that is going to be effective for you if you're very much learning the game and the processes, and you know, a bit kind of cagey sometimes, taking a bit of damage here and there. It's going to help you just kind of relax you, and as well just keep you alive when you think you're not playing so well. Next up is Magik, and a really easy power control champion to use. Push to an L3 to absorb and take away all of the buffs that are on an enemy. And then you've got like the SP1, which is helpful to a degree with the same stuff. SP2 is really amazing for power control, and you know, that could be the best option there, to just like spam in SP2s, getting that power lock on for a longer time. But power stealing is so much fun because then you're able to kind of constantly spam in those very nice special attacks. Special attacks, getting power lock, you know, works out pretty well. Nothing more to say. Got limbo, so there's some aspect to regeneration to the character. So yeah, all in all, great champion to use. Okay, hitting up the next spot, and that is Medusa. This is a great champion against robots, especially when you get armor shattered. And armor shattered could interact with things like regeneration, and as well like certain types of effects with robot-based champions. So armor breaks, bleeds. You know, we've got Furies as well. This champion is great at damage output and is a real kind of brawler champion, which I think when you're learning the game, brawling is a bit scrappier, but at the same time, if it's stupid and it works, it isn't stupid. So yeah, great champion. You'll love her if you have this champion. We go with Mordo. Heavy attack holding equals Fury stacking. L1 spamming equals degen and stuns. L3 gives you regen and more Fury. Yeah, great champion. I seem to repeat myself a lot, but yeah, Mordo is a great champion. A champion that I was very much quite rude of, I think, in the beginning, but when I slowly kind of understood more about this character, the more that I ended up liking and loving it. So yeah, if I ever get a very specific gem from a variant, I will definitely take my 5-star version up to rank 4 at a later date. Here we are with Namor, and the fact is this is a great champion for damage output. A lot of players will go with this process, push to at least 28 when it comes to the outrage, 28 in the top left hand corner. When that's there, then maybe look to have an L3, put in that L3, and then it's a case that you'll go into the kind of the animation. You'll come out of it with a Fury buff, and then keep hitting the enemy until it hits 30, and by that time, hopefully, and fingers crossed, it's just shot you straight to another L3. Apply that, and then you'll be able to put in at least 2 unblockable SP2s, which then you could even do another SP1 off the back of it, and just kind of keep on gaining those Fury buffs. You'll find that you'll be able to smash through a lot of damage very quickly with this champion. And also with the special attacks regenning. Like, I use this champion all the time in map 6 in Alliance Quest, and I just find it just such an amazing and fun champion to use. Up next is Nick Fury, and there's so many decent things going for this champion. You've got the Awakened ability, then you've got Life Model Decoy, so basically if you get hit down to 0, you're going to get some health back, and then you will degen, but the fact is, it doesn't matter. You've still got the fact that you're still alive in the game. There's also just so many kind of decent things. You know, you can have an unawakened version that's still good. Damage output is there. You've got amazing furies. You've got amazing bleeds. There's so many things going for this character that I think a lot of players love, and that's why it's rated so high at the moment. Up next is the Mega Red. I would recommend anybody thinking about taking this guy further, have an Awakening Gem, and as well, make sure to put at least 50 signatures. There's going to be great damage output potentials on. Lifesteal from the SP1, you've got degen from the heavy attack. There's a poison type effect, which is the kind of the death factor, death field type thing. And then as well, look to put in an SP2 in order to gain up to at least 20. But you'll find that you're just outputting so much damage on that debuff effects. Next up, you got Rogue, very simple champion to get on with and use. Power control off of the SP2. L1 is all about life stealing. You can shrug off debuff effects over time. Yeah, and you can replicate off the L1 any kind of buff effects the enemy might have. So yeah, very easy champion to use, very recommended, highly recommended from myself. Sticking with the mutants, and we got Sabretooth. Sabretooth is a great champion from going fight to fight. Persistent charges again, cold immunity, which is great, and the persistent charges is all about building up those furies. As you go from battle to battle, you'll be able to get a lot more furies, just build them up. Unfortunately, after I think it's 3 fights, it then kind of like dwindles down. You have to restack them up as you go into more battles. So yeah, another great champion to use. Awakened ability is good defender as well, when you consider the fact of regen being quite frustrating, but you have to get hit quite a bit, and it is passive, which is kind of annoying, and it's not completely active all the time. But apart from that, great champion. She-Hulk is another solid option, especially if you're looking for passive fury building and also damage outputting a huge amount. Look out for kind of a little bit of utility when it comes to her Petrify, which slows down certain effects. If you're going against an Nihilus, then the Unstoppable from that character, as well as Juggernaut and Doctor Doom, can be very helpful indeed. So yeah, absolutely. This champion is really effective and is actually highly used. A lot more than you might think. Next up is Star-Lord, and unfortunately Star-Lord was this old school champion that really a lot of players used to love, especially when you used to build up a huge amount of combos with the Awakened ability in order to smash through huge amounts of damage. Unfortunately, the champion suffers from the meta shift, and I think even though it's a great champion and can do a lot more, there's a lot more to the kit bag, that tools that this champion is lacking. But at the same time, if you're looking for a viable option to take you against the Realm of Legends, and also a good amount of like hefty bits of content, and this is your strongest champion option, then my word, absolutely still go for this, and it's great. Hitting up that L2 after huge amounts of combo can see some amazing amounts of damage, and also build up some of these lovely little buff effects. So yeah, go for it. Here we go with Scarlet Witch. Nullifying buffs, huge crit damage, poisons, heal blocks, power control. Sometimes works better after 50 signatures. Yes, an awakened version of Scarlet Witch is definitely the way to go. It's a fantastic champion. Really recommend it. You'll just need to kind of like put in L2s and just watch up stacking the damage. Just kind of play this as just the easiest champion to have, and especially with the awakened ability, and especially over 50 signatures, you're going to see some huge amounts of damage output. Next up, and we've got to have Sentinel. Heavy attacks equals shock, L1s equals heal blocks, L2s incinerates, L3s with armor buffs. Do that again, so another L3, and that armor buff gets converted into regen. You cannot go wrong with this champion. You've got the immunities in place with the bleed and poison immune. Yeah, I absolutely love this this character. This champion's just one of the best, and I am really looking forward to my 6-star being awakened at a later date. However, though, I do use the champion from time to time in different types of questing formats, and Variant 3, great champion to use for that, and also XL champion for Variant 2, so there's a double whammy there. Spider-Man Stark Enhanced is still a great champion. Even after years after release, he's still viable, he's still pretty cool. We've had the stealth suit version, but there's a little bit of complication with that, which I think really kind of undermines the whole premise of this video about very easy champions to use. And in a nutshell, keep on swiping back to build up poise charges, and then once you've reached about 10, then swipe in and put a good amount of damage. If you feel that the enemy and the AI isn't working correctly to your liking, then hit up a parry and then hit on through. Do a heavy attack in order to power control, but watch out because that web cartridge of doing the EMP will take a little bit of time to then reset, and then it's the case you just got to time that in well to do that. Put in an SP2 to do some shock damage, and it's a great champion that I still use to this day in a lot of different bits of content. Thing's a great champion for damage output, and look to just put this in your roster as well with so many different kind of immunities. Like, it is a great option as well. Like a really popular defender, taken down by bleed based champions. But yeah, just fantastic. Well worth a rank up and putting into your main questing team, maybe even with a Fantastic Four team. On to Venom, and lots of buffs and lots of positive things. You've got True Strike interacting well with those champions that put in evade based effects, which are, as we know, very, very frustrating. Not to mention the fact that this champion gets so many different kind of buffs like Fury. You know, the list goes on, and just like the huge amount of damage output is really possible. I really like this champion. I would love it as a 5-star, but as you know, the luck hasn't fallen for me lately. Oh, it has to be Venom the Duck. Venom the Duck is a great champion, also pretty easy and kind of like good to kind of get on with, especially when you're thinking about you're storing buffs in a bank and then you're doing an SP3 and then those buffs come out. But also you've got different options with those buffs, regens as options, armor breaks or armor up as an option even, and yeah, so many different things that really kind of put to a huge amount of damage output. You've got degen based effects on the enemy, and it's very much well loved, this champion, which was introduced well over a year ago. Next up, and the Visions, Vision Age of Ultron, the standard OG Vision, which, let's face it, that really kind of costs a huge amount of money, and unless you kind of look to, I think the 3-star version is obtainable, but when it comes to the 4 and as well as the 5-star version and now the 6-star version, it's very much a costing one. So let's assume that you can only get the Vision Age of Ultron. Great amount of power control. We do have heal block as well, and we've got power burn. So there's loads of things going for this champion, and it's very much well liked as a tool-based character for power control at a very early stage in the game. So yeah, take this this champion up a bit further, especially as a 3-star, and obviously as a 4-star whenever you're looking for power control, unless you don't have any other strong power control champions. Also, we would be completely remiss if we didn't talk about Void, an amazing champion, especially when you're considering it's all about creating and putting on as many debuff effects as possible. For me, this champion has been a godsend, especially going up against champions like Mephisto. In Variant 2, there was a very difficult Mephisto to go up against, and having this guy in which is Incinerate immune, very helpful. And as well, when you consider you've got to kind of keep your distance and like dexterity more and evading more to make sure that you're keeping alive, and also putting on a huge amount of debuff effects. The more time you're in the game, the more debuff effects you do, unless you choose to build up to an SP3, and which converts into some passive base fury effects based on the amount of debuffs, and you're able to put in a huge amount of damage. And that's something I really do love about this champion. I really want so badly to get a 5-star and 6-star version, but again, as we all know, the luck is never there, but hopefully at a later date it will be a case that could be done. And the final champion, which is a really good option for those that are really learning the game and want to understand like getting better, but also like looking for a champion that can keep them alive as well, and that's got to be Wolverine. Probably one of my favorite champions, kind of going in from a very early stage in Act 4, and you know, maybe considering doing some aspects of early Act 5, but the fact is this is a great champion for regens, bleeds, and that is simply what the character is about. If you're looking to make sure you're regenning more, hit up to an L3, have the L3 just kind of stacked there, and then just watch the regeneration flow at a huge rate. Especially if you get hit, then this guy is going to be, you know, keeping you alive in the game a little bit longer. But unfortunately, with current meta, I don't know if people would want to kind of focus on this a bit further on. But for me, I feel this is a very good beginner-based champion, especially when you want to mitigate some damage in stuff like Starburst in Act 4, and also anything that's going to debuff damage you a bit. But when it comes to certain types of nodes in Act 5, when having a buff is not a good thing, that can be a little bit trickier. Either way, great champion. And that has been the list. And there we have it. That has been 40 champions to focus on, or 40 of the best champions to focus on from a new player's perspective, or even as a progressing player's perspective. These champions will be very helpful for you. And obviously apologize to everybody that would think that I've missed off key champions like your Quakes, your Sunspots, etc. The fact is, I just feel that those champions, even though are very easy to get on with, there's some elements of complexity which do need to be addressed in order to make sure that they're doing the best damage output, and picking them up and kind of playing with them is not very kind of like cut and paste. So yeah, that's the reason for these 40. But obviously I welcome you in the comment section to put some decent champions and why, hopefully in one sentence, as to why they're pretty good and would be a great addition to any beginner's roster. But in any case, Thank you very much for watching. And if you did want to check out any more of the videos in the new beginner's guide, which I have recently put out, do click some of the options here on screen at the moment. Thanks again for watching and supporting this series, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.